here. Brian's not on the committee. Brian Hill is a resident right now and has been involved kind of just broadly in town items for the last couple of years. Yeah, kind of the last couple of years. He comes to a lot of meetings. This is Mike. Mike.
Mike, how you doing?
Brian. He had just submitted an application to the appointment to our town.
Oh,
so I
okay,
was just
great.
letting him know about the interview process.
All the committees are getting such great interest.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to have too many candidates, but it's also unfortunate in this, on one hand, it's been a while since I've had to send a lot of thanks to no thanks letters.
Yeah, I know.
It's been a long time, and I feel bad.
I wonder what generates that excitement.
Hey, it's reality.
Good, how are you? Good.
So, as he is the chair, since you're going to come right in front,
Hello.
Mike's the applicant who decided to come by and see the meeting, and I let him know we're trying to get him in front of the board for an interview next month. So we have more, I was just telling Brian, we have more applicants than we have positions, which is great, but it's also just a challenge to kind of do the process to get them sure. So we won't have as much trouble making form next year.
Excellent.
Good problem. There is a new arts committee. I can't remember what it's. The acronym. Like we have RCAP, Second Conservation. All the committees have an acronym. The Cultural Arts and Public Spaces CAPS. It will. It's not officially established yet. The town board's going to see a resolution this coming Monday night to. It's an enabling resolution to establish the group, and then there'll be an opportunity for 9 people to be appointed to that group. So if she's interested, have her send me that application as well. Even though it doesn't say art or cultural arts public places on the form yet, she fills it out and sends it to me. We'll get her in. You guys come on the same night. That'd be great.
Oh, well, we have a young daughter, so we'll have to figure out.
You can trade off. We'll try and work around your schedule.
And it might be a home rule.
Oh, yeah, possibly. Possibly. Yeah, every year we pull back hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the impression that it was something that was not for sure, but I didn't hear any complaints in the various discussions about it.
Well, I guess maybe we've been at the retreats when we talked about it. I talked about it at the October retreat. The board was interested in it, but it wasn't, hey, we need to start thinking it. I think the mechanisms and the protocols to do it, we bring it up and go over pretty regularly, just to make sure everybody knows all the detailed steps you go through.
Yeah.
You establish a charter commission and then go through the election calendar to consider a charter.
Right.
It's just, it's such a long process.
And now you have 3 new board members. And you
Yeah, so they might be more interested in it. And then
Yeah.
Sam Mamet from CML in Colorado will be here for dinner with the board. It's coming Monday night.
Yeah, I
so that's
watched
always
that.
a topic that we talk about.
I watched that 09 video.
Oh, the 09 video? Yeah, that's
presentation.
great. That was it really been.
I think it was
here.
09. Well, let's see. No, it couldn't have been, right? Because
It might have been
Williams
09.
had just been elected. She's in her first year, I think.
He's been here a couple of times since then. I feel really bad. That was the last time he was here. But yeah, home rule is something that he's really well versed in. I'm sure the board will talk about it.
Yeah, and he gives a very objective, sort of
Yeah, the pros and
presentation.
cons and the experiences that we do talk about.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, like you've seen in these dialogues, you have to gear up for this discussion. It's a long, very formal process. It's not one of those, let's make a policy decision and then we'll carry it out in the next couple of months. It's a kind of an 18-month, 2-year kind of dialogue. It takes however long it takes the charter commission to establish and craft a charter. That could be a couple months, could be 6 months maybe, and then get on. You have to kind of do it with an election calendar stepping back from that.
Right.
So if it was going to be from November of next year, it's real soon.
Oh,
It's
you
gonna
can do
take-
they have elections in off years, where it's available.
Yeah, anytime the county has a coordinated election, the county can participate. So it's not necessarily like the general election, like the presidential election, but somebody's got one every year. Like this year, I don't think there was any Louisville City Council members that were. I think next year there might be.
Oh, okay.
It's everybody's on their own kind of staggered
That's
pattern.
interesting.
But they'll be in line for something.
Yeah.
So if there is policy geared up, and I'll dust off all those books.
Because there's not very many statutory towns.
We are by far the biggest statutory town in the state.
We're the biggest one,
By far.
and there's not many statutory towns, are there?
There's lots of statutory towns like Lyons.
I mean,
or-
percentage-wise.
Yeah, but as a percentage, there's a lot of small unincorporated towns that officially would be under state statute, but any that have, like their own, public works department,
Oh.
substantial water, like
Right.
towns that are, you generally consider having their own, being full-service towns.
Yes.
Having a police and fire service,
Mhm.
having, full-time staff,
Mhm.
paid to run stuff. The vast majority of those full-service kind of communities are have a charter, aren't home rule, and aren't subject to, some people are really, really don't, like you've heard in our discussion, some people really don't like the idea of being home rule,
Mhm.
but every year there are at least a dozen or
Because it
so
has to be
items
very
that
well
come up.
crafted.
And there's lots of really good examples. And you'll hear Sam on Monday night talking about all the great examples of recent charter commissions and recent charters that have been crafted and approved
Mhm.
that are tight, really well crafted and don't have
Mhm.
defects. But there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
Charter commission can't come up with what they come up with, but there's so many good templates. At this point, I don't even think that we can screw it up.
Right.
You just never know.
Yeah.
We're all fallible.
Is there, did you guys need chat about the meeting?
I don't know, what are your thoughts on if it's just me and you
I don't know.
so far?
It might be short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard from anybody else.
I guess at the very least, we could start in a little bit and at least get your comments. on
Yeah,
record.
let's maybe wait maybe until 5:40, maybe do another 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
Go over the kind of main items. And
Yeah,
get them
sounds
on,
good.
and then get them recorded. And then if anybody who's not here, can at least hear the quick updates.
Yeah, sounds good.
Like we've seen over the last year or so, we don't have too many people. We just call them an update session, kind of go over the basic stuff. And then go home early and watch football.
Sounds
Awesome.
good. All right, let me know if you want to start.
Yeah,
I'm
let's get
happy whatever.
Hey, I got one other question. Do you think there's any appetite, from the board to have, and maybe it's already occurred, but to have Longmont come over and talk about their, broadband services?
So broadband is something that we've been talking about for years.
Right.
So the familiarity with the
Oh, so you
Nextlight,
guys-
Silverlight, Nextlight, the
Yeah,
Longmont program.
Nextlight.
Nextlight. Yeah, we're all familiar with it. We've
Oh,
all
okay.
kind of been tracking it. So I guess, a little bit like home rule, maybe having somebody from Longmont or some of the other folks that have done either a private partnership or Longmont. Longmont has its own electric utility. It's such a great.
Yeah, it has its own
use case.
electric utility, it had its own, fiber backbone, and they still had to issue $43 million in bonds.
Yeah, it's still a difficult operation that they decided to take on.
Yeah. And it's still rolling out. It's
Yeah, it's not done.
there by any stretch of the imagination.
And I've seen a couple of articles where they've had some operational struggles, like anything, it's about last
Oh, yeah.
15% of any project is,
Mhm.
every project's gonna have a on.
Yeah,
You and I
all
talked
kinds.
about on some projects or park projects, I've talked about in the past. The vast majority of them go great, the vast majority of the project itself is awesome. There's always gonna be those.
It's always a snag.
Hey Jim, how are you? We're getting off to a rousing start, as you can tell. So I'm introducing, as everybody walks in, Mike Pension is here. Mike Pension is a candidate for our captain.
How you doing?
Mike.
Meet you, Jim Payne.
Jim.
Jim Payne is been on several committees for the town over the years. I've known Jim for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
Working on different projects and committees over the years, and has been a member of the HOA board for several years now.
Right.
Currently president.
Yep.
And he serves as the representative from the HOA. Yeah, because the town has a waste contract, but our customer base is just original town, Simonmore, Ridge, Monte, a couple of other smaller neighborhoods, 1,500. The HOA is overlapping interests, we try to work together as much as we can.
Does Saddlebrook have their own HOA?
Yes.
And their own?
And not,
trash
Saddlebrook
collection?
is not a sub HOA of ours, it's independent and it has they do their own trash, they pretty much have a.
They're kind of on their own.
Oh, they do?
I don't even think they use collection trucks, I think they have someone who just,
Concierge service or something like that.
Picks it up.
Yeah.
Now,
but Summit is a sub HOA, they use our kind of.
oh, okay. So, the Zaharias development?
Mhm.
if
Yeah,
that
ones
were
that plan
approved,
the.
There's some relationship between that developer and Saddlebrook?
Yes, there is a connection. I don't know, it's historic.
Not in the rock.
Oh, yeah.
Gentleman
That's
who
what-
worked for Steelway,
That's what
the company that's currently the primary.
Oh, okay.
She was just presenting us on the team. 20-some years ago, whenever when
Oh.
Saddlebrook was built,
Okay.
it was his company then that proposed and built Saddlebrook.
Oh, okay.
So it's,
Okay.
he's the commonality, but none of
Yeah,
the.
just curious.
none of
There's
the
no
team-
financial or legal.
No connection. He hasn't been related.
Okay.
He sold that project, but
So they were,
after it was built, I don't know when.
Oh, okay.
We were both very young.
Sure.
But he hasn't had any relations to the project, other than just, hey, many years ago, I was on town, I helped the project. No connection.
That's all I heard, I just
Yeah.
curious.
He was the developer when it was first built, and then his relations to the project severed a couple years after.
I was just curious if there was gonna be any economies of scale between a new project and that project, like, another trash collection.
No, I'm not, the margins are tragic, isn't there?
Desirable, we got.
Great contract. Contract with it. HOA's come for a lot of them, asking for service ditches, so the HOA residents.
But Saddlebrook doesn't use the town and doesn't use Rock Creek. So they
I don't even think they have a conventional hauler, I think they just have.
I got it.
Common, someone
Common
comes.
dumpster truck. And I want to say it's like concierge, it's like, Verizon used to do, where they would have somebody go from door to door and just take
Right.
refuse to dumpsters.
Right, it goes into some sort of dumpster, it's not, I don't think they have a trash driver.
Oh, I see.
Sure. I was talking to them the other day, I mean, the prices there are just skyrocketed, those people,
The dwellings?
they're like double or triple in the last 2 or 3 years.
Crazy.
Unbelievable
And then
numbers.
check my phone and see something's
I have the numbers somewhere, but the prices.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a pretty
You
heavy
know,
campus.
we had some friends,
Because they're not building condos anymore because of the new laws,
oh, right.
the laws that exist.
Well, the Zaharias development, I believe he said they were going to roll out as apartments because of some sort of tax law. And I'm not sure exactly how it, but.
It's not a tax
law.
law, the problem hasn't been a tax law, the problem has been the fact that you can't, the builders cannot get any protection against liability.
Oh, so if they build them as apartments, they're not on the hook.
Right.
And then if they convert the apartments into condos,
Which is hard to do.
they're not on the hook either.
Right, that's hard to do.
Oh.
You do it.
I just thought it was H-E-N-C-H-E-N.
There's nothing on their website that says that they're transfers.
Hmm?
There's nothing on their website that says that they're
Yeah.
transfers. It's not what interesting, but.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have someone who just has a big bin, like a
Yeah.
dumpster type, and they just goes and they dump it in there, and he goes off and dumps it somewhere.
Oh, yeah. That's weird. How many units are there?
Either 230 or 300, somewhere.
Really? That's huge. You know, we had some friends.
Somebody.
Our kids were friends, and these folks sold a beautiful home that, was on LaSalle, you know, back to the green
Right.
belt. It was just beautiful. And they moved into Saddlebrook. And, you know, just the downsizing drove them crazy. And, you know, I think, and at the time they said, the unit that they were in needed so much upgrading.
Yeah.
It just really soured them. And so they sold it and moved out.
All right. Yeah, it's a mixed bag, you always get that. In a place like that, I guess. Yeah, their prices are just over double, it's like, in the last 2 years, 2.5 years. And when you think of how much is being built, then a lot of it's apartments and, you know, all that stuff is being built over by Interlochen and, on the other side of the hill and right there, it's amazing.
I think I read somewhere, I don't know if it was Brad,
Louisville.
what's the realtor's name?
Brad.
Klein? Brad Klein, yeah. I
Good
don't know if
Brad.
it was his document or something else, but, they thought, I think existing home sales had really stifled. Remember, a lot of homes in Rock Creek that are up for sale and have been on the listing for a long time. So I'm not sure what's going on. I just assume prices have topped out. And, I think for a long time it was just cash offers that were coming through. People who were moving from the San Francisco Bay Area or, New York.
Right.
And said, well, we're just going to cash out of that region and move here.
Saddlebrook's the one at the top of the cover, right?
No, that's the ridge.
That's
Oh.
the ridge, yeah.
Saddlebrook's over by the
Confuse it
reservoir.
too.
So is the Perry's just gonna be all apartments? Is that
They're like
the idea?
345.
All condos.
What is that?
Condos,
They're
okay.
like 345.
Yeah, I mean, they were
That's
in
crazy.
the 200s.
314.
Hey, I haven't,
A lot of moolah.
hi.
Why, night?
Hello,
Hello? It's just slowly Essie?
just me. And Martin was here and then he just took off.
Oh.
Not sure. But he
He's
said
like,
that.
he's phone to see if more people are on the
Oh,
way.
yeah, I emailed him, so he emailed me, that's why I was like, he just emailed me.
Okay.
I was like, I just got here, there was some kind of accident on 36.
Oh,
really?
yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
36 is wrong.
Eastbound or westbound?
Where'd you drive from?
Colder. No, like the worst direction.
Yeah.
I used to
Yeah, coming out of Boulder this time of night.
Yeah, I used to commute to Denver, but going that direction in was never bad. Hi, night. Hello.
Thank you very much. So Ezzy, share an email.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, he
Wait.
just coming in to tell us.
But yeah.
Well, at least I showed up.
Yeah, I didn't have any other calls. Thanks to Ezzy.
It gets cold and everyone turns into little squirrels.
Yeah, it's a tough night.
I don't think this is the first time in December we've had
Yeah, it's
not warm.
Yeah.
Sunday, always tough.
So we can get started and have an update session. Go over some of the information for the purposes of the group, and then record them for any members of the committee that have a chance to watch the video later. All right, if the committee is okay with it, we'll go over a couple of updates. Tori has a couple things that she's going to go over under the update items for Garden in a Box and the yard waste facility improvements. And then, actually, I can do the Christmas tree information and the newsletter items now, and then we can skip ahead to that, and then we can come back to the work plan items probably for next month's meeting. So if that's okay with you as we work,
Sounds good to
jump
me.
in. The Christmas tree program with the Scouts, like I mentioned last month, Troop 278 is going to coordinate doing the pickup again this year on the Saturday after the 1st, so January 7th. And their link is included in the town's newsletter, and it's been on our website for a while. It'll be great to have them picking up Christmas trees again this year. Yeah, January 7th, starting at 8:30. So they have a Google form that you can link into that is connected or linked on our webpage and also on our website for anybody who's interested in participating in that. And then other newsletter items. Vacancies. Mike Minchin is here tonight. He's one of several candidates for this group to fill the couple of vacancies that we have with this group, and then also 4 on ProStack and 1 on Planning Commission. And like I think I mentioned earlier, when y'all were coming in, we're trying to schedule time at upcoming board meetings to process and get all the interviews in. And get folks appointed or considered for appointment by the board as soon as possible so that we can have each of the committees and commissions fully impaneled for next year. Christmas tree program I mentioned, yard waste site hours. The expanded hours are listed again as a standing item in the monthly newsletter. Bulk item discard options are listed, as well as the windblown trash and the do good. Another great picture. Melissa always finds fantastic pictures for the do good reminder to pick up pet waste when you're out and about. The transit updates. The HOV2 to HOV3 conversion is happening on January 1st. If you haven't seen any of the ads that have been in the papers and a lot of media outreach by RTD over the last few weeks, we're trying to partner with them to the degree we can. So there was an e-blast, I think, today. We put it in our newsletter, and we'll continue to try and get the word out that HOV lanes on 36 are going to be 3+ starting on January 1st. But the 2 items that this group has been interested in the past, call and ride, and then the availability of local bus service. The route information for 228 is listed again, and then also the link to get a reservation with the Superior call and ride is linked again. And last month there was a question about whether or not we were making our boardings minimums for RTD in order to maintain that service or potentially keep it as an active RTD program once the grant funding for that is completed. And right now we're at right at about 3 boardings per hour. Kind of the threshold to be a successful call and ride program is 2.5 boardings an hour. So we're looking good so far, which is great. Yes.
Is there any more information, like what that is? Does it tend to be people going down to the last mile, connecting with the system at the park and ride, or are there people going to stores or appointments or doctors, or just curious?
I haven't received that. What we have, the Public Works Director
I guess I may not know.
has received just the breakdown from RTD just on the hourly boardings. You know, they track fares. That's
Right.
the bottom line success determinant for RTD. If they have some demographics or if they've done any marketing, if I get it, I'll be glad to share it, but I haven't received any yet. I think for us, what we're hearing and through some of our outreach is that there are a lot of students that use it, you know, to get home from school or to get from practice because they're at school later. They're using it for rides home, and then also rides to the mall. I think that's teenagers going to the mall during the service hours that the service is available is one of the bigger sources of fares more than anything, but I haven't seen anything, Jim. Which is great. And then I also hear from folks who are new. Every now and then they'll just call town hall thinking, I see this service in your newsletter, how does this work? And I'll end up sometimes talking to them. And it's folks who sometimes are new to the area, or they just have seen, the word EcoPass in the newspaper. They just want to find out how to get to Skyride and if the McCaslin BRT station connects to it, and just sending them the link to just rtddenver.com and just talking about some of the great options. They're all for it, which has been great. It's been great to see. So just anecdotally, my own experience has been that it's been well received. I still hear a few, I don't know what the word is. It's not really complaints. It's just it's more like aggravation or gripes about sometimes that it's not always timely the way people absolutely have to have it. If somebody doesn't want a 2-hour window, they need to be at the BRT station or they need to be at a Vista hospital right at this time. Sometimes they'd have to plan way too far in advance. but it's going to kind of come and go with just the demand for the service. But Jim, it's a good question. If I get any additional information, I'll be sure and share it. So windblown trash, the Do Good program, the transit, energy smart tips. Leah Yancey from the commissioner's office sent us some great tips on holiday lighting, light bulbs. Yeah, the light bulb information we put out again, and then the county has, like I mentioned in the past, a great deal for folks who are interested in getting a discount if they're considering the purchase of an electric vehicle through this cooperative purchasing program that the county is passing through, and including all the jurisdictions in the county, including us. We've been able to pass this through in our website and in our newsletter over the last couple of months. Holiday gift guide. So EcoCycle has 6 ways to go green this holiday season. Michelle Horton was nice enough to go through the EcoCycle's website and find some good links, and this one looked like a good one, and thankfully Tori was able to establish this link and get a good graphic over to Melissa for the newsletter. Some reminders on how to reduce the consumption of materials and recyclables during the holiday season. I want to click on it and go through them, but I don't know if that's the best use of everybody's time. Be sure and click on that on your website at home. And then the charm coupon. So the coupon for the hard to recycle items to take over to the charm site is still in there. We'll plan on having that for the next couple of months. This group asked, it was either last month or the month before last, how we're doing in comparison to how we would have done if we'd actually had the HHW event last April. And I looked at this when you asked, and I forgot to mention it last month, and I don't remember what the number was off the top of my head, but not as many materials on a volume basis have come in over the course of the year versus having the one-time event when folks can just drive over and drop them off, which, I guess intuitively makes sense. When it's convenient and in your backyard, why not just drop by and drop it off? But having the coupon available and making it half price to go over to the charm site and get familiar with the site, and then think of it maybe not just once a year. It was, I think, a real benefit for the folks that have taken the time, rather than just keep materials in their garage and then wait for the town to host the one-time charm or the household hazardous waste event with EcoCycle and household hazardous management with county, rather than just that one day. Going over to the site and getting familiar with it, I think, has had some value as well. But a question for the group will be, hosting it again this coming April. There's a 4-day weekend that El Dorado K8 has, which we, over the last few years, have been able to use their parking lot to host the household hazardous waste and hard to recycle event. And we'll try to schedule that date again if it makes sense to the committee to try and staff that and be here for that again next year. I'm assuming it will, but it's a decision for the group.
Mm-hmm.
So we can come back to that next month. And that was it for newsletter updates. So the new business items that Tori's going to go over: Garden in a Box, and then the yard waste facility improvements. And then also Brian Hill forwarded a presentation, a PDF of a presentation that you wanted to go over and talk about some of the configuration and financials. So I won't steal your thunder, Brian, but I think a lot of the things that you were interested in going over, actually Tori has kind of, for the most part, included in the PowerPoint that she has, going over the plans that the town has been working on really since earlier this year, maybe even the end of last year, on what we'd like to do, our vision for making enhancements at the yard waste site. And I think the ideas that you have assembled are pretty much in line. So we'll maybe touch on those as we go, and then if you want to go through your presentation after, maybe highlight any questions, or I'll try to answer what I can. But with that, it's Tori's.
Great. So for the yard waste expansion, we'll go over the existing site and then the proposed changes for 2017. And then we will look at financing for that, which includes 2 grants through Boulder County. So this is the existing site. There's a entry gate right here. You can't really tell with the shadows from the trees. It's a pretty narrow space right there. So users pull in, drop their stuff, and then have to back out. So a line kind of forms here as users are going in and out. And then when the contractor comes to remove the full bins, it also delays users who are dropping off or picking up compost. And the compost pile is also right here. So with our proposed changes, there's a lot. So briefly, the entrance would remain the same, and we would remove a tree right here just so that we can make it a wider space with a new gate, because if you go down to the site, you can see some dings on the post from the contractor. So it's a pretty narrow space. So that'll make it a little bit easier. Sorry, the font is hard to read. There's a check-in kiosk right here, so our yard waste facility attendant can use that as an office space as opposed to using their car, which is the current option. So there's a car idling for about 20 hours a week. So we no longer have the need for that. We'd add...
Which is important, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
just interrupt. So just to provide a space for a staff member to be in. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot, and they're stuck out there on their own. So having a kiosk that has electric power to provide heat or air conditioning has been, I think, a priority since we even first constructed the thing 10 years ago. So it would be a fantastic improvement to be able to put somebody who's a staff member in a situation where they're not exposed to elements and don't have to have a car idling.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have that, and then we would be adding 3 more roll-offs for collection, and then another roll-off for compost. So 2 of these bins will be walk-in, so they'll be more accessible. And then on this, we have a 20-yard roll-off. We are discussing it with the contractor if that is a good option for people. So that's that's fluid currently, but we would still be increasing the capacity by 3 roll-offs, so more than double. And then, patrons...
Well, really 4 roll-offs, right?
Yeah, 4, sorry. 3 that would be used for drop-off, and then 1 for compost pickup. So residents would come in, and they could pull up next to the bin of their choice, and then they could pull out and go through the exit. So the fence that is currently around the site will be moved to here, and there will be about 30 to 40 feet of new fence, but for the most part, we'll be recycling that material.
Or just reuse the fence.
Yeah, and then, just lost my train of thought. So the Varget, this is the current landscaping contractor's yard, and so we'll be giving them a gate, so that'll require a tree removal as well, but that way they still have a site, and the yard waste site is still expanded significantly with an in and out flow, easier for the contractor to get in and remove a bin without disrupting the entire process for all the patrons that are using the site. So, yeah, any questions?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Would you mind going up to the microphone, though? Thanks, Brian.
I mean, I can save my questions to the end.
That's okay.
Hi, Brian Hill, Kyoto Lane. Question about the bins. It's sort of a drive-through, but are residents still required to climb stairs to put their yard waste inside these
So-
7-foot-high bins, or are they lower?
So with the additional bins, as mentioned, there would be the walk-ins, so you wouldn't be going up a ladder. And then also with the 20-yard roll-off, it's a shorter bin you can put stuff in it without having to get on a ladder.
So the whole, ideally...
So the doors will be open.
Yeah, so it'll have a gate on it that people can walk up to and
Yeah.
walk in and drop off the material rather than climbing up something and flinging it over the side.
Yeah, that's
which
excellent.
is really only possible because Boulder County hopefully will, grant us or award the grants that we're interested in, so we could leverage that funding to, rather than just have a box, have one that has a gate on it.
Okay, and can I ask what the amount of the grants are?
So I'll go over that.
Okay. Thank you.
So our goals of the site expansion would accommodate composting needs for current and future demand, a user-friendly layout which allows 5 people to drop off while 1 can pick up compost. The traffic efficiencies, as you saw with the drive-through setup, the additional boxes to accommodate more people, and then an attendance kiosk. It allows us to have staff there and accommodate them so that we have staff that actually wants to be down there. They can be an eye on the site and help things flow a little bit better and direct people in the right direction. And then we'll increase material drop-off and the access to compost material. So we'll begin in January towards the end. Hopefully weather works with us. We're looking to finish at the end of April 2017, but the site will remain open the entire time. Since we have the 2 bins currently, those can still be used. So with the grant funding, there's $25,000 in available funds. There's a grant that we finished last week, and then there will be another one that opens in January. So with those funds, we'll pay for the check-in kiosk, which will provide supervision to decrease, if not eliminate, the contaminated loads. The attendant will no longer be idling for 20 hours a week in their vehicle. And then we'll also have additional storage for tools at the site. We'll put in concrete pads for the roll-offs, which helps our contractor with the pickup and the drop-off. It's not sliding around on the recycled asphalt. Makes it easier on him and safer for people using the site. And then we'll remove the 2 trees to create those access points, and then move the chain link fence, which we're recycling, so we're not using new materials, a significant amount of new materials. And then we will have the capacity of 6 roll-offs. So those are our overall goals with the funding. So any questions?
Ryan Hill, Kyoto Lane. Let's see, I think the budget set for the next year is $116,000 in the yard waste line item. And is that going to remain the same, or does it have to go up because of these changes at all?
So I'll touch on that one. So we talked a little bit last month about budget, Brian. The $116,000 that was budgeted for next year was predicated on, I think we talked about conservatively the maximum number of hours and the maximum number of hauls per week, and stepping back from there. I think, like you mentioned, the year-to-date expenses weren't as high, but I checked the accounting software over the last couple of months, and we've had a couple of $10,000 months just with the amount of the volume that's coming in. So even though it's probably not going to be $116,000, would be my guess. I think that's what the direction was when the board considered the budget for operations. So that's hauls, that's some staffing, and also running the Christmas tree program, which is probably going to be, what, 10,000-ish?
10,000, if it doesn't grow.
If it doesn't get much bigger than that this year. So although it's a conservative budget, I would assume that based on actuals for this year, the 2018 budget process probably ratchet down a little bit. But that's operating expenses. The capital improvements at the site would be paid for out of a separate capital line. I can't remember what that amount is. Is it 20?
I believe it's 20.
$20,000.
$20,000. So this would be to use in conjunction with, so $20,000 for capital improvements plus the $25,000 from the county I think is what Tori's planning to use.
So $45,000 to implement these changes?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of the long and short of it. Operating and capital.
So when Jim Payne, so when you say operating, you're referring to because obviously you've got that many more dumpsters, so you have that many more hauls.
Yeah, so I think that's based on 3 pull days at 5 times each. So that's, it's basically projecting if we had the same frequency of hauls based on increased demand and increased usage, we'd plan on that many hauls per day, 3 times a week.
So all of that's in there. And then so I'm clear, when you talk about the composting dumpster, that will be a compost that is available to residents. It's not.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, Tori was being modest, maybe describing what we've all seen at the site, which is the compost gets dumped there, and then people shovel it, and the wind blows, and it gets fairly distributed around the site. So by having a box or a small roll-off that can contain it will help make it easier to get to and help make it easier to retrieve and not have so much loss or just every time it rains or the wind blows.
Yeah, just the way you had. Is this presentation going to go to the board, or does it have other life, or is it just for here?
No, it's really just for here.
Okay,
Because
you might want to clarify that.
The operational expenses are already identified, and the board saw the capital discussion through the budget process,
Right.
since it's not in excess of $25,000. Well, it's $25,000 with the 2 grants, but it's something that the town manager would let the board know about, but it's not a
Right.
contract that would go to the board.
Good. Great.
Anything else? So I'll quickly go over the Garden in a Box program. So the town is partnering with the Center for Resource Conservation, and we will be obtaining 50 gardens for residents. So that's about $2,900, which provides residents with a $25 discount on the gardens. So the prices for the gardens are $79, $119, and $144. So for residents who receive the coupon, it's $104, $129, and $144, varying in sizes and different options. And we'll be partnering with Louisville to have a common area pickup for residents who participate in the program, and they'll be announcing in the next couple weeks the different layouts they have for the gardens and all that information. So we'll be distributing it throughout town. So yeah, that's it.
So this is a program that the board heard as a recommendation from RCAC as part of last year's work plan. And we talked about it during the joint meeting when RCAC and the town board met last spring, and the town board was interested in pursuing this. So it was included in the waste diversion line as an item to pursue officially last year, but we were too late to get signed up for the program. So Tori was very diligent in signing up for us to be a participant in the 2017 program, and has been working on the logistics. So this is kind of coming full circle from a work plan item from 2 years ago to get direction to do this year and actually carry it out next year.
Nice. So, Jim Payne, now I'm speaking in my capacity as president of the HOA. I mean, just keep in mind that the plantings like that do need HOA approval. And many, just looking at the website, as you know, because this is not new, we've had this pretty much every year to some degree. Looking at the website, so many of the uses and applications are not an issue, but some of them are. So applications where people are essentially trying to transform their front yard into a wildflower kind of open, that's just not necessarily going to be approved. So I'd appreciate it if there's some mention in any literature that, they do need HOA approval for plantings. Just would help avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, that helps the residents, because if they if they misunderstand that because the town is doing this, there are no issues with how they plant it, and they go ahead and plant it, it can be very expensive and costly for the resident. So it does the resident the biggest favor if you point out that it does need to be approved.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, Jim, that's a good point. Well, and we when I think some of the really good marketing material we get from CRC comes, I'll ask Tori, and Melissa can work on incorporating something as just a note to consult or have a reference or a link to the HOA information on that. So we'll coordinate that with you when we get it, Jim. That's all right with you? No, you have the mouse.
Oh, sorry.
You get to back to the agenda. There's the work plan. All right, so Garden in a Box, yard waste facility, annual Christmas tree program we touched on, newsletter items. We didn't touch on any public comment. Brian, you had a couple of questions, and I indicated that Mike's here, and then also for the record, Sharon Procopio is here. Thank you, Sharon, for coming, making it through traffic. Discussion of the...
Jim Payne again. Just wanted to update. I think I may have mentioned it the last time we were here. We had a problem with Waste Connections trucks that discharged in a number of different areas, but particularly in the Summit. And in the Summit, years ago, invested in pretty much putting all concrete throughout their whole development, their whole community. And the discharge from Waste Connections was pretty pretty brutal for them and raised a lot of complaints. Well, anyway, working with the Rock Creek HOA, working with the Summit, which is a sub-HOA, spent a lot of effort prodding, but eventually they came around and prodding Waste Connections to fix it. And they were able to do a surprisingly good repair or fix for what they'd done. We were impressed. It's not 100% gone, but they actually finally were able to correct a lot of it.
That's great. Was that a Waste Connections sub that was able to figure out a good solution?
They did it. We had them talk to Superior Maintenance, and they was just too quick to pull that together for this. But they finally had a crew. But in the interim, it did, probably of greater importance, is that it did prompt a reorganization in their shop, their maintenance shop, and they replaced the person who is doing it. And because it turns out there were much bigger problems. It wasn't just one truck. They had a whole host of problems.
Yeah.
And the good news is that they seem to be addressing that. They put a new truck on our route. They've gone through and truck by truck have taken the trucks out and have replaced the lines, the hydraulic, the various lines with higher quality lines for the fluids and so forth. And they've resealed checked and resealed where necessary all of the trucks, so they don't leak the trash fluids and so forth, and so they've done a lot. So
That's great. So it was
good.
a
It's
larger
good for
problem,
everybody.
or it was a
Oh, yeah.
systemic issue.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yes.
Well, it was great to get some
Yeah.
resolution.
So.
Yeah, it was great. So thanks for noting that, Jim. That's just something, again, that the committee's talked about, and Jim and I have talked about over the last couple of months, just this incidence of having just spillage, the undercarriage of the truck sometimes, just for whatever reason, haven't been maintained the way they needed. The discussion item for the committee meeting tonight was the part two of what's usually maybe a 2 or 3 part discussion on next year's work plan. So we had, Ezzy and the folks who are in attendance here in the audience will recall last month we went quickly over the items that are included in this year's work plan and started talking about potential amendments or changes for next year's work plan. And then the homework for the group, maybe that's why nobody wanted to be here tonight. They didn't do their homework. The homework for this meeting was to come back with some suggested changes to go over with the group and consider for finalizing at the January meeting, which is typically when this group does that. But with just this being an update session, we can talk about anything that you've got on your list, Ezzy, that I can note on here, or if there was something that you had received from any of your colleagues on the committee. I hadn't received any follow-up.
I haven't received anything.
You haven't received any?
No.
So I can send this out again with just the update notes from this meeting, and then invite folks to maybe send any changes they want, or just politely ask that they come with their suggestions maybe for the January meeting, and we'll try to finalize it then.
That sounds good.
Unless there was something else that any other suggestions. So if that'll work for you, Ezzy, we'll plan on that. So I'll send out some update notes, or Tori and I will work on some update notes from this meeting, and then send out that PowerPoint presentation. And then Brian, you had the PowerPoint presentation that you had forwarded earlier. I'm sorry, I skipped right over that.
Yeah,
Was
if
there?
time, I'd like to whip through that.
Sure. If there's time now, I apologize, Brian. I didn't think about it. If you want to flip through the slides, you have to take the mouse, though.
Oh, okay.
You have all the power now, Brian.
So to operate the mouse, you just click on it or roll it, or?
You can scroll it or click it, I think.
Okay. Okay, so this is just was my concepts at some yard waste facility improvements. So Google Earth is a great thing. I like Tori's depiction a little bit more, but I think she covered most of the issues. I didn't have any idea of how much more square footage the town was going to be entitled to. So I'm operating on the assumption that it's the same fence line. We have the two bins, one gate wide enough for one car at a time. And then here's the compost pile. So it's the same configuration. I think you're solving the minimal vehicle maneuver space. That's a problem now. You're getting rid of the narrow ladders with the uneven risers. I think you'll get rid of most of the hauling interruptions. I'm not sure exactly how that operation is going to occur. I don't know if you've given any thought to that. There's, of course, hauling vehicle going in and going
Brian,
out.
if you don't mind, I'll just jump in on that one. So the hauling, so with the pass-through availability, like Tori described, you could pull in on one side and pull out the other.
Yeah.
The contractor, if I'm not mistaken, will be able to pull through and then back up to any box that his representative wants to have pull up, and then can immediately go out the exit. So there wouldn't be what Brian's describing is when the contractor's there to pick up a box, the site shuts down, and everybody has to wait while that exchange happens, which takes a few minutes. So I guess the hauling interruption that you mentioned as a challenge, this would help respond to.
If both bins are full, then he has to come in and haul away one bin.
Mm-hmm. And then bring one back.
And bring one back before anybody can use it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that his truck is going to come through here and then grab those roll-ons, roll-offs, because I think there were 3 more here, and
depending
one
on their
over here.
spacing, he'd be able to pull through.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
I don't
use
know
that.
how he's going to do that. So,
No, he's smart. He can figure it out.
sure. And
there should be good turning radius. I guess that's the other thing I think that Tori wanted
Mhm.
it shown on that map. So regardless of which side he chooses to pull in from, he'll be able to make that turn coming out.
Right. So there is, the wear and tear on the hauling vehicle by, grabbing those bins. And then I talked to the Broomfield yard waste facility, City of Broomfield yard waste operator, and she made some mention about ADA compliance requirements, and I'm not sure how that plays into this. I got the impression that if you had a certain configuration or offered a certain service, that all of a sudden ADA compliance issues kicked in. So Tori, I don't know if you touched on that.
With the walk-in bins, that accomplishes that.
So they're wheelchair accessible bins.
Yeah, it's if you basically took like one side of the roll off and it could open, so it's pretty large space.
And then the surface that if there was a wheelchair or somebody needed a vehicle to move in, having a parking surface, the recycled asphalt that provides the parking surface there is sufficient. And then if they're on pads or if they're on concrete pads, then somebody on wheels could literally wheel up to the bin itself. So those are the ADA compliance thresholds that we would shoot for.
Okay. Let's see. So I think you covered all the consequences that I've outlined here. And this is just the current operating budget. Through October, you've spent $54,000. I think September itself was about $6,500, and that's consistent with what I've seen in the monthly reports. And I think everything else has been covered. I think the $114,000 year-end estimate is a little high.
Yeah, I think you're right, Brian. I think that will be high. But like we talked about during budget before, we have, general fund as a whole that's appropriated annually by the board. So if there's no rollover.
Right.
It would have to be appropriated again. And
Right.
any money that isn't spent this year doesn't roll over or carry over to next year.
Sure. Okay. So, here's what I call an opportunity configuration, again, based on the same footprint. You'd have to put in a new gate, It would allow vehicles to come in with their yard waste, dump it, and then exit. They could pick up compost if they wanted to. And in this configuration, you would have an attendant who would be on duty there, who would pile the debris, keep it in one big pile. And the biggie here is that the attendant would be able to chip the branches on site. That'd be a great benefit because you wouldn't have any delays from hauling. You'd have no hauling on the town roads. Right now, I believe your contractor hauls down Cold Creek Drive here to his site. And so that's a lot more traffic on an already problematic street. Over here, if you look at the yard waste facility, you can see a lot of potholes from vehicles going in there. And I assume that's also from the hauling truck. So you would minimize some of the wear and tear on the road from a hauling truck actually coming in here.
So Brian, I'm just going to jump in on that one. So chipping on site?
Sure.
So the equipment necessary for that, and then being able to isolate that from the public, and I guess I've only seen a couple of chippers, and they were fairly large and,
They have
and
chippers,
fairly loud.
Right. They have chippers of all size, and I found a little link here. But you can find, I think this was $2,500 or $5,000 for this chipper.
So a small on-site chipper?
So they're small, but it
would
covered the
have the pile
5-inch
there.
branches.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just from we talked to our contractor about that,
Mhm.
and he had mentioned that the chipper that we would need would cost anywhere between $40,000 to $70,000, considering the amount that we take in at the
Mhm.
site. So he was saying that it would be pretty costly,
Mhm.
but that's just a brief
That's-
conversation that we
so
had
just-
with
Yeah,
him.
that's just one input.
Yeah. So there'd
From
be an
your
equipment
contractor.
cost. And so then, I guess logistics-wise, you still have a big pile of chipped material that would still have to be hauled.
That's right, but your town landscaper could make use of that mulch and use it around town.
Oh, I'm sorry, if we haven't had this conversation in the past. A lot of the mulch, the quality
Mhm.
of what happens, of what we receive in our organics yard, isn't the kind of, it's too high in, I want to say it was nitrogen. It's not the kind of mulch that you would get if you went to a Home Depot or Lowe's. That's
Yeah, I'm not
when
talking
we've
about
had it in the
compost, I'm
past.
just talking about chipped up
Yeah,
wood
yeah,
pieces
yeah.
like you would get from Pioneer.
Also, with the current ash borer situation, a lot of places aren't providing it because it spreads a already expanding issue. So a lot of
Oh,
places are no
yeah.
longer doing that
Mhm.
until the ash borer situation is kind of more figured out and contained.
Yeah,
So
I guess that's a more modern one. But what I'm
So-
referring to is when we've had mulch in the past, when we've chipped our own debris, people
Mhm.
don't want it.
Residents don't want it.
Exactly.
And, yeah, so I'm not sure what the policy is as far as using mulch in the town on public grounds, like in the parks. I don't know if you use that or you don't use it.
We do, but we would use mulch of a higher quality than what would be dropped off at an organics drop-off site like this. So
Oh.
the quality of the material that we would use either on town projects or that you
Mhm.
would buy if you went to a home improvement store
Mhm.
is much higher quality.
Oh, I don't know what
mulch.
makes the quality. I'll have to do some
And
research.
it's been a few years since we've done that, or since I've actually dealt with this, but when we've
Mhm.
chipped material in the past and left it out for people to come take,
Mhm.
it doesn't go, and it ends up molding and blowing all over, and we've actually had to pay to have it landfilled in the past when we've tried that. That's,
Oh,
this
okay.
is goes back a few years for me, but it was one of those common sense solutions that I thought for sure would work.
Right.
And I tried it a couple times,
Mhm.
and I had to admit defeat.
Okay, okay. And these were just comparable facilities. This is the Broomfield facility, 17,000 square feet, no bins to drive through, chipped periodically. It's just a big pile here. And then Louisville, it's over on Empire Road. It's near the cemetery, 4,000 square feet. So a little
Oh,
over
that's it?
twice as big as ours.
Wow.
So here's an
No.
aerial view of that. Here's Empire Road. And this is what it looks like. So people can come in here, here's a big debris pile, and here's what it looks like ground level. And you can see there's some heavy equipment back here just for moving that stuff around.
What do they do with it? So it looks like a drop off and not in a bin. Do they?
No, it's just piled here and then scooped, I guess, by this equipment. I didn't have time to talk to the Louisville,
Huh.
city of Louisville, about how they do it. So,
I mean, that includes grass clippings and everything else?
I don't believe it does. I believe it's just
It just looks like
branches.
trees. Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
beautiful view.
That's a much nicer view than our yard waste facility.
Let's see. And I guess that's the end of it, because I can't get to go any further. Yep, that's the end.
How big will ours be with the new configuration?
I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. I think it's,
Did you put that in your presentation?
no.
Was it in there?
I think it was 14,000 foot increase, so it could be a 20,000 square foot, but I don't quote me on that. They might be mixing it.
Yeah,
So Brian, you had
when-
mentioned when you looked at Google Earth, you saw that our
Yeah.
site was currently 4,200 square feet.
Right.
So this is it's got to be more than doubling it, right?
So it looks like
Yeah.
it's at least 4 times, or,
Yeah, so
4 times that. So
So, yeah.
16,000, who knows?
It's probably in that range.
Ballpark.
So yeah, we kick Louisville and Broomfield. We win. Fine. It's something.
Yeah, what was it? 17,000,
So,
so about the same.
Oh, we're catching up to Broomfield.
They are thinking about moving theirs, though.
Oh, really?
Is
So
what I
where
was
is it
told.
now? It's on Commerce.
This is on Commerce, so
Huh.
it's right down here. It's on Industrial Lane and Commerce. on
Yeah,
that
kind of
corner.
under, or by the railroad?
Where that new extension from 120 is.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the railroad tracks?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Sure, yeah. So it looks
Okay.
like we mentioned at the beginning, it looks like we covered a lot of the topics that you were interested in covering. Tori had included in her presentation, so good job dovetailing that, even though I don't know you intended to. So Ezzy, I think that was everything on the agenda. Was there anything else you wanted to go over?
No, I think with the relatively low attendance, you can just wait till next
Or
time.
maybe wait till next month. So next
Mhm.
month, we'll plan on going over, well, we can mention that we talked about this tonight, maybe give everybody a refresher if they didn't have a chance to look at
Mhm.
the video. And we'll, come back to the work plan. So those are the things that I'll have on the agenda for next month. And if something comes up, I'll let you know.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody, for coming by.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Or Daisy's gonna wind the door every 10 minutes.